say when.
Just bear with me, it's loading right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And I need to record.
Hi, sweetie.
Okay, we are live streaming and we are recording, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the time is 6:06. I'm going to call to order the May 4th, 2021 meeting of the South Kingstown Conservation Commission. First up is call to order. Mary Talbot Robbiano.
Here.
Matt Bradywood.
Here.
Vern Wyman.
Here.
Ann Heffron.
Yeah.
Oh, good. And Christopher O'Connor.
Here.
Excellent. I'm David Flanders, and with us is our Director of Planning, Jamie Rabbit. And did you find anybody else in attendance
We
besides?
just have Lori Gibson and Sharon.
Okay. Our first order of business besides roll call is the approval of the minutes for the April 6th meeting. Does anybody have any questions or additions or anything they want to bring up before we move it? All right, hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes for the April 6th, 2021 meeting.
I'll motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Okay, Mary Talbot Robbiano moved and Vern Wyman seconded. The order is all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, the motion is passed. Our second order of business is a tree board hearing for a tree on Barbers Pond Road in the vicinity of Assessor's Map 8, Lot 5, Joseph Robenheimer, owner. We do have 4 photos of the tree, and we do have in our possession Lorraine Jubert's initial letter to John Schock and Bill Wallace through the Department of Public Services regarding the tree. Is Mr. Robenheimer with us?
I do not see him in attendance.
Okay. Did anybody get a chance, or has anybody not gotten a chance to either look at the tree or look at the photos with the development road? Okay, and I believe George Loomis is in the audience who can speak to, he and Lorraine live across the street from that tree, and I just wanted to hear if George had anything to add to Lorraine's letter or any more information that we would need to make a decision here, a recommendation.
Hi, David, and commission members. Thank you for the chance to address this. In addition to what Lorraine offered there, I went out and took some fresh measurements. There is between the tree that we're talking about here, that street tree, and looking south to along Barber Pond Road, there's a stone wall, and the opening to this development has breached that stone wall. So from the street tree to the first rock in that wall is measures 36 feet in length. There is a stake placed just along that stone wall area, which I believe marks the edge of the common area, which I believe is kind of a no-go zone for this development. But that distance measures from the street tree about 43 feet in length. So there is quite a bit of distance there, and there's additional portions of the stone wall that can be removed if Mr. Robenheimer needs more available space to be able to get equipment in and out. But having lived across from this development site all this time, there's been a number of construction-related trailers and equipment. There's been several logging trucks that have removed the considerable amount of timber that was cut off of this site, off of this property. I don't believe any of those vehicles have had any difficulty accessing this site. So it doesn't appear that the existing opening that is presently there now has limited any kind of construction equipment or vehicles going in and out of this site. This is one of the remaining trees in that immediate vicinity. Several of the trees have already been removed by the town. A couple of trees were removed by the town that were killed by moth damage and also due to drought conditions. So this is really, it's a healthy, mature oak. It's in great shape. There is nothing that's wrong with it other than there's one branch that lost its upper part of it. Small, probably at its base where it meets the main trunk is probably maybe 8 inches, 10 inches in diameter or so. But the tree is in perfect, healthy conditions. And it is part of the community forest that we have here. Mr. Robenheimer has removed considerable amounts of trees from his property. He has completely cut the inner portion of his property. And this tree does not belong to Mr. Robenheimer. It belongs to the community. It belongs to the residents of this area and the residents of South Kingstown. And I would ask the commission to look upon that and make a decision to deny cutting of this tree and protection of the tree from any kind of additional construction activities. Thank you.
Jamie, for the record, I would like to add that our collective correspondence on this included a letter from John Schock to Lorraine that was CC'd to all of us, saying that he recommended to Mr. Robenheimer that the road be moved rather than the tree be removed.
David, if I could also offer one other thing. That vicinity, well, most of Barber Pond Road is about 18 to 20 feet wide, the travel path on it. It's a gravel road.
Mhm.
It's not a high-speed street by any stretch of the imagination. The tree doesn't pose any kind of visual impairment to traffic in either direction coming along Barber Pond Road. There's plenty of viewscape, so that isn't an issue. In the road going into Mr. Robenheimer's property is 16 feet at its widest, and that necks down to 12 feet at one point where there's a bog nearby. So that I would think would be the bottleneck, would be that 12-foot wide opening in his own road that brings, I'm assuming it's a private road going into his compound. So that would be the bottleneck, not out on Barber Pond Road where there's, 18 to 20 feet of travel lane space.
Jamie, do you have access to those 4 photos that you could put up? Because
Yeah, if you give me a moment, I should be able
sure.
to pull them up.
It seems to me that that entranceway into his development is pretty darn wide, certainly compared to Barbers Pond Road, and that moving things over another 8-10 feet to save the root structure for the tree should not be too much of a problem.
Good. Mr. Chairman, that is a photograph
Yep.
just to the southeast of the driveway entrance. You can see the bobcat or skid steer just to the left of the new driveway. The tree is just to the right of the green silt sock, snake-like looking green structure. And you can see the letter posting that tree for removal on that tree.
Yeah, I took those photos. Yep. I don't see too much problem, given that the, what do you call them? The erosion socks to the left, they're just in a storage area. They're in a holding pattern. The area has already been cleared. I mean, without them there, there's still plenty of room to move that driveway a good 8-10 feet away from that tree.
There's one question which you can't really see. What is the distance of how far from the actual right-of-way, the actual roadway, is the tree trunk base? What is the setback? It's within obviously it's within the town's.
Yeah, Vern, I'd say it's within 3 feet of the actual road itself. I mean, it's certainly in the town right of way.
Yes,
Easily.
yeah.
Very close. And also to the south or the left as we're looking at it now, to make room for that driveway into the development, there has been cutting into the root structure of the tree already.
Yeah.
Now, I know, Jamie, that John mentioned in his correspondence that Bill Wallace was going to go out and look at the tree. Do you have any word from him, Bill, as to what he found? And
Mr. Chairman, again, Jamie Rabbit, Planning Director. I'm aware that Bill has been out there versus a conversation, but I do not know the results of his findings that he may have had based on his site visit.
okay. Well, I would like to follow John Schock's lead and consider the idea of moving the road rather than removing the tree. And I wanted to know what's the consensus of the commission on this?
Well, I personally agree. I don't see why not. I don't see any reason to take that tree down.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Having been out there less than an hour ago, I don't even see what would be needed in moving the road. I'm not sure what would be gained by cutting the tree down, really. The road has plenty of access as it exists.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a bit surprised actually that the property owner at this stage in construction is electing to have it removed based on convenience grounds. It seems like all the work in that area has already been done.
I would agree as well. I mean, I've been actually, I went on that road for the first time after leaving the trails that go out towards Yagu Pond, and I think some of this development work was underway at that time, but clearly it's a road that really serves the residents in that immediate area. It's by happenstance you might take this route on the way north, unless you're a resident there. So it's not a heavily trafficked area. So it certainly can't be any claim that some way would interfere with movement of vehicles on that stretch or present any risk. So I see no explanation from that standpoint. And obviously they've already taken their share of trees in this process here. Why take ones that are outside their boundaries?
Jamie, would our object here be to make a recommendation to the tree warden as an advisory to the tree warden, as in the tree ordinance?
Again, Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing. You do not have an agenda item for discussion or motion but I would say based on the testimony, the meeting minutes reflect what
Gotcha.
one could conclude as a consensus of the commission members, as well as one abutting property owner and one additional letter that you've received as correspondence.
Gotcha.
To have the tree remain, and we can reflect that in any correspondence
Sure.
by our department.
If nobody else has any further comments, I'm prepared to close the hearing. Does anybody have any?
Mr. Chairman, we just bear with me. We do have 11 people. We do have one hand that is raised right now from a
Sure.
Sharon. If you don't mind, I'm going to bring her on board. Sharon, you've been promoted to a panelist. It should come up shortly. You are muted for the moment, Sharon. You should have on the bottom left of your
Yep.
screen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, I was just out there today as well. Actually, it's some place that I go to quite often. I don't live there, but I'm very close by in Exeter. And I don't see the reason why this tree needs to come down. Because it is such a beautiful, healthy, tall tree. And, you know, considering global climate change and, you know, so many trees being removed nowadays, I just feel like every single tree becomes important. And this one, as an older tree, has the capacity to do more than younger trees that are planted in as a replacement. And that's been documented through the Carey Institute. And I think that you could look that up in terms of the value of keeping older trees alive. And that's all I have to say.
Ms. Chairman, may I ask Sharon for her last name for the record?
McLean, M-A-C-L-E-A-N.
Thank you, Ms. McLean.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Mr. Chairman, we have another person with their hand raised, so I will.
Thank you.
Bring that person on board. Give me a moment. It is Lorraine Gibson. Oh, we just lost our two attendees. Lorraine, if you are watching, if you can log back on.
Jamie, her name is Lori.
What is it, Lori? Thank you,
Lori.
Mary. Okay. If Lori, you are listening, if you can come back on board, we'll attempt to promote you to a panelist.
I can see Laurie Gibson logged in on my screen.
Me too.
She's muted. She is muted.
Just bear with me. Laurie, you should be coming on board. You can enable your video. And Chris, you mentioned, can you see her? Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for your patience, Laurie. Laurie, you're muted, bottom
I'm
left
muted.
corner, if you hit unmute. We should be able to hear you now.
Thank you. I'll just make this quick. The issue of that one particular tree, and I thank you, George, for the measurements. I would not be in favor of cutting down about the last remaining tree in this development. I think the whole road, I'm about 3 houses north. We're pretty upset just with the whole development that it's a clear cut, and who would move to the woods and cut down all the trees? That's beyond my comprehension. But I don't see anything wrong with that particular tree, and if there's anything we can do, I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie.
Sure.
Jamie, do we have anybody else in the wings?
I do not see anyone else with their hand raised at this time. We do have a Sharon.
We spoke to Sharon.
We spoke to Sharon, so she's just listening. So I'm just going to double check attendees. We have no other hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that being said, I'll accept the motion to close the public hearing. Anyone?
I'll
Move to
motion
close.
to close the hearing on the tree on Barbers Pond Road, which should remain.
Thank you. That was Mary Talbot. And do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item E, update on the Earth Day cleanup by the Friends of the Saugatucket. It was quite a success. First of all, I'll show you our logo. And we're working in conjunction with the Ministerial Road people because the forecast for Earth Day Sunday was rain, which indeed did happen. So at the last minute, we just sent out an email blast to, or I guess it was probably done on Facebook, because now the Friends have at least 158 people following on Facebook. And we ended up getting 32 people along the river and the pond picking up trash. And as opposed to the Ministerial Road people, they had 30. So there were a good 64 of us out there, or 62. And in the end, the town had coordinated with the state, and they provided dump trucks at the municipal garage on Asa Pond Road to take the trash up to the Johnson landfill, because the state was waiving tipping fees for Earth Day related pickup.
Oh, nice.
And we filled 4 dump trucks and collected 1,200 pounds of trash.
Wow.
So it was quite a success. And that's pretty much that item, unless anybody has any questions. These cleanups, by the way, are going to be done periodically. I think at least semi-annually. And we will continue to publicize them. If anybody wants me to forward your email address to the Friends, I can certainly do that. But they also do have a website called friendsofthesaugatucket.com, and you can certainly log on there. I know that one of our agenda items is going to be partnering with the Friends. And so it may have to be done on an individual basis, but there are a couple of other ideas that will come up when we discuss that item. So that would probably be the best way to do it rather than doing it through me. I would say go on to that website if you're interested in pursuing it. The site, I mean, the numbers of people are growing exponentially. This is a very popular project and organization. And it's currently going to go for tax-free status. And initially right now, we're working through Watershed Watch. For instance, if anybody wanted to make a contribution, and this information is on the website, it would be done through Watershed Watch, their organization, for at least 30 days until we can get the tax-free status to go through. So that's a service that they're doing for us. And so if people want to make, contributions. If no one has any further questions, we're going to get on to new business, item F. And that is item number 1 is discussion on the Conservation Commission's budget and possible expenditures. If you were able to check your email this afternoon, what I had thought was our annual budget of $800. This year, for whatever reasons, is $939. So there's a good amount to play with. And does anybody have, I have an idea of something we can do, but does anybody else have any ideas of how we might spend all or some of this money? In the past, we had worked with, the last couple of years, I believe, worked with Save the Bay, because they had a program for, I believe it was 4th graders, where they would take, where they would discuss stormwater runoff, and they had a physical model that they would bring, and just it was an educational program that they did. And at this point, I would need Lorraine here to tell me, did we cover all the 4th graders? But obviously they're new 4th graders, and I don't know how the schools are doing with COVID, how much is hybrid, how much is in present. So I really can't speak to that. One thing I can tell you about the Friends of the Saugatucket is that they are reactivating a program that an older group, the Saugatucket River Heritage Corridor Coalition, had done with water monitoring. And they had, I know a couple of people who were monitoring 2 different sites on Saugatucket Pond. I don't know if anybody was actually doing the river, but the Friends of the Saugatucket want to do at least one site in Saugatucket Pond, probably closest to the Fiore Industries, in case there's any, runoff from their depositing stuff on the, that would be the east side of North Road, west side of North Road. And there is a culvert that takes that water into South Kingstown's portion of the pond. And that would be one place that we would be talking about. And another couple of ones were being talked about at our meeting last week was one site on the river north of the pond and on the river south of the pond. Those 2 sites on the actual river would be considered shallow monitoring sites, and the ones in the pond would be considered deeper sites, and the cutoff point is 9 feet in depth. So the expense there is in actually getting the testing. All the labor is voluntary, of course, and that's another way that Conservation Commission members can help. But to monitor the shallow sites is an annual fee of $500, and to monitor the deeper sites in the pond would be $700. So those are one way in which we could use some of our money if we so chose. But I'd be really interested in hearing if anybody else has any other, ideas for how to spend some or all of the money.
I was
Yeah,
just
just one more-
curious, Dave, what do they test for? Do you know?
Yeah, there are two different things they test for, and the volunteers go out, two different groups of things they test for. And Rich Youngkin, who chaired the original Heritage Corridor Coalition, was much more fluent than this, and the names came fast and furiously.
Yeah.
But they go out 2 different days of the week, and they monitor for one group of 3 or 4 discharges or chemicals, oxygen levels, and the second day they do another 3 or 4 different groups.
Okay.
Watershed Watch has their own website, and they can articulate, what they do. I would refer people to that website.
Okay.
And it's organized by this woman, Elizabeth Heron, spelled like the bird.
Mhm.
So for more information, I would
Okay.
suggest that. But it's very important work. I know that before we had control of our budget, the town was automatically taking out a couple $100 here, $100 there, etc. And one of the groups they were monitoring was Barber Pond, and I believe it was Lorraine who said that's no longer necessary. They're much more important areas that we should be doing. I went on the website just to see. South Kingstown has the most largest number of water monitoring sites in the state with 27.
Wow.
But so far, none are being done on the Saugatucket. So it's a good niche to put us in if that's what we want to do.
Okay.
And Jamie, I have a question. I believe we would have until our next meeting, which would be June 1st, to make a final determination of what we want to do, because I believe the fiscal year ends at the end of June, but that the town needs almost a month to really make this happen, or for bookkeeping, or I don't know what. But am I correct in that, Jamie?
Yeah, I believe I have correspondence. I think it's by the first week in June.
Okay.
I'm sure if that date got pushed up to the end of May, the commission would be more than willing to have a very quick meeting in order to get that. Again, any decisions you make, David, I'll just make sure that if you're leaning in one direction or not, that we solidify any procurement things we have to do in this preceding month, so that if you come to a decision, we kind of have the procurement process laid out for you. So we don't run into, you made a great motion in June and we found out the procurement couldn't occur because there were too many hurdles to cross.
Okay.
So we'll
Good.
try and track that on your behalf.
Great.
And is it a matter
Attendance, subscription, make sure we just go through the right expenditure.
It sounds like the town is already monitoring other sites. So do they already have, sort of purchasing access to the lab that would do the analysis? Because presumably you'd want that work to be accomplished before the end of the fiscal year?
Right. No, I think it's done through privately. It's done
I
through
see.
the Watershed Watch. It might be done through Save the Bay. I mean, there are a lot of sites, for instance, in the Long Island Sound, in Block Island Sound. So some of them were done by Save the Bay. I think it's all private funding.
Oh, I see.
But again, I didn't spend very much time on the website. I would want to do that. In fact, we all could do that before our June 1st meeting. But
Yeah, David, one thought that I had was those pucks that Bill was talking about at the last meeting.
right.
That we're going to get distributed around different storm drains. I don't know if funding's already been procured to purchase those, or what channels that comes through. But if we had some residual amount, throwing it towards the purchase of those things could be an option.
Right. Those are medallions for the storm drains, and they're all funded by Save the Bay. What they would need, and again, ways that we could, partner with people, is they need people to go out and to fix them. They do have an adhesive back, so there is a temperature window, I believe, of at least 55 degrees for that to happen for a 24-hour period. But those are going to be supplied to us by Save the Bay. And it may, and I'm not sure, some of it is definitely being done through the Friends of the Saugatucket. They may all be done through the Friends of the Saugatucket, but I don't have confirmation of that. But those are all going to be paid for. It's just labor after that.
I got you.
Anybody else have any further ideas on how to spend this generous amount of money?
That sounds like a gap if every place else is already being monitored, though. I kind of agree with you, David, that it's a good use of the money.
Well, I think particularly, I didn't get a chance to look at the map today, but I think the substantial entire run of the Saugatucket River is within the bounds of South Kingstown. So, it's and the Saugatucket was affected when we went through the remediation process at Rose Hill, particularly for high iron content. So I know there's monitoring focus there, but in terms, when you start hearing about herring coming back up the river in some numbers, and this river is kind of taking a new life, I think it's very justified, to go and extend sort of full coverage if the pond is not a feature that's being presently monitored like that. So, yeah, I think it's a very good idea. Particularly, the amount is not huge, so putting it to work in a way that may fill a gap in the monitoring of the Saugatucket River, I think, is a very warranted kind of commitment.
Good. So, Jamie, could you address the procurement issue you just talked about?
It just how the donation is, it's from a public entity to a donation to a nonprofit, and just make sure whether we need how we do that purchase order wise. You're not, let's say, buying anything, but you're using public funds to make a donation to a entity. So it's just, I should have that answer. My other thought, and we talked about this just briefly internally, because it came up with the tree issue and removal. You've had a couple of projects in town where substantial canopy has been removed for development, and that if there was we have multiple buckets in different departments, I could ask a couple of questions and find out that Public Works and Public City Services has funds available for water monitoring, which potentially would free up your $939 for something else. My only thought is, Parks and Rec maintains a substantial amount of acreage, and they don't always have the budget. Their budget is mowing and hardscape. That there may be an opportunity if those funds, there were extra funds or diverted funds from another source, that the Conservation Commission could potentially plant a couple replacement trees on town property in an attempt to mitigate or offset some of that new development. Again, potentially doing something non-oak, which appears, I know, throughout Connecticut, Western Massachusetts, and into South Kingston in the southwestern portion of town. 3 years ago when the gypsy moths came back through, they did a lot of devastation on the oaks. But if it went to a little, it seems they like the oaks, and they the birch trees in some areas seem to be more preferable to even the oaks this time around, to maybe look at maple or sugar maple varieties and maybe get a couple what could be specimen trees for the future generations of the municipality to enjoy. A lot of times you have the town parks and there isn't shade. It wouldn't be shade for a few years, but there may be an opportunity there. And again, that's if there are other funds available and your money was left on the table.
Okay.
The other thing.
Yeah, without
We
opening
keep
a whole can of worms, we had discussed at the last meeting the possibility of some of this funding going towards tree plantings on Torrey Hill.
No.
We're no longer discussing those
No.
purchases.
That was
Okay.
going to be privately. Well, we did talk about some, but no, that was nixed by the town. So that's not happening.
The discussion, it's an easier discussion to potentially put it within public lands versus putting it within a public right of way. There's always the inherent potential conflicts with vehicular traffic and public right of way versus creating canopy or adding greenscape to another piece of property that someone's always wanted to do something, but just didn't have the funds to do it. The other possibility, David, is if the money wasn't spent this year, I can ask to earmark it and carry it over to next year. So you would have 900 and 900 for 1,800 for next year. And then maybe those monies cobbled together could actually do something more beneficial than what you're anticipating this year. So I think you have 3 options potentially in front of you, and I'll run everything up the flagpole and make sure you would be positioned for a final decision at your next regularly scheduled meeting.
Sounds good. If we were to fund water testing, our 939 comes really close to 2 times 500 for 2 shallow water monitoring sites. So I can do some more homework and see if in fact I'm correct in suggesting that the river sites, I mean, I don't think there's any place where the river is more than 9 feet deep, but there is a place in the pond where that is true. So I will do the rest of my homework on that issue if people want to do other homework prior to our next meeting on the 1st.
Okay,
Does that all sound good?
Yeah.
sounds good, David.
Okay. I'm prepared to move on. It's just under new business discussion on possible partnership with the Friends of the Saugatucket. I think basically at this point, obviously, supporting some of these projects financially to the degree we're considering is a really solid partnership. And the rest of it seems to be various projects that the group is taking on. And I think just to stay abreast of that, check onto the website and give them your email. As I said, they're also on Facebook. I am not, but that's also a way that they stay in touch. So I haven't got anything more concrete than that. And I did speak with Bill McCusker last night, and that's pretty much where our discussion went. So I think that's where at this point. I'm prepared to move on to item G, correspondence and public comment. Jamie, do we have anything?
We just have the 7 panelists, the 6 commission members and myself. There are no other attendees.
Okay, and do we know of any correspondence that Jamie have gotten?
None that hasn't been part of your agenda this evening.
Okay. And update from staff on planning department activities?
Just a couple updates. You're aware one was on your agenda tonight. Construction activities have occurred on Barbara Pond Road. People have been throughout the community. The village at Curtis Corner has started their land clearing activities.
They've clear cut area.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, that was reflected on their site plan. So everyone's viewing that, looking at that, and I'm sure there'll be discussions moving forward. The other item is the planning board did, under development plan review, approve a site plan and architectural rendering or building design for a retail structure at 1860 Kingston Road. It's targeted to be a Dollar General. That will ultimately go to the zoning board for a special use permit. Also, Shepherd's Run received approval for a preliminary plan. So that allows them to move forward with their rehabilitation of the existing estate and the conversion into a vineyard, wine tasting, production, and event center. So that is moving forward. The fields in front of the former estate, between the estate and Prout's athletic fields and tennis courts, are being prepared for the planting of grapes. Those have been purchased, and as of last week, they weren't in the ground yet, but things happen quickly when you're not out there every day. So they're looking for a summer to early fall opening.
Has there been any
Late spring, I mean, in a perfect world, late spring.
Has there been any talk of when our various meetings are going to be held in person? I mean, we're a small enough group that it would be easy for us to keep socially distanced, for instance.
At the department head and division head level, we meet every 2 weeks. It coincides with town council meetings, but we also meet in addition to that. The town hall is anticipated to be open to the public, I believe on May 10th, fully open, observing COVID-19 safety protocols that are subject of state and Department of Health. With regards to meeting in person, my understanding is for the near future that we will still be Zooming in, and it's mostly consistency with operation versus one board doing in person, one board doing half in person, half Zoom, and then another board completely being Zoom. So I see that being a moving target.
Yeah.
No hard dates yet, David. It's a great question, but we don't have any hard dates. My information is we're going to continue to Zoom in the manner that we have been.
Well, things are in flux, and it'll be interesting to see what the summer brings related to a possible surge with more and more contact. So it is a moving target for sure. Next meeting date will be Tuesday, June 1st. And if anybody has any agenda suggestions, well, we've already discussed our budget. That will certainly be one thing. But if anybody has any other things to bring up, do contact Jason, and either by email or telephone, and pass them on to him. Designation of a duty member there for TRC. There are 2 TRC meetings coming up. One is the regular Tuesday, May meeting on the 12th, and that would be at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the second one is about South County Hospital doing their major rebuilding. And that's going to be on the 18th. And I believe it's now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe
1 or 2.
1 or 2. Yeah. So we have 2 opportunities. And by the way, if you're interested in the hospital meeting, you can download a 323-page presentation by South County Hospital, because that's the reason for having the 2 dates, because it's just so voluminous that we need really 2 different meetings to deal with it. For each meeting, I happen to have my calendar open, but does anybody else want to go to either the regular meeting or the South County Hospital meeting? Okay, then, I volunteer. And unless I hear from somebody in the meantime, I'll plan on attending both the May 12th and the May 18th meetings. Before we adjourn, does anybody else have anything at all that they want to throw out for the public good? Okay, hearing nothing, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
That was Vern Wyman motioning and Chris O'Connor seconding. Any further discussion? Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much, all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
For everyone, I'll
Good
just.
night.
Good night.
Night all.
Thanks.